Get down.
My late law partner, I listened into a consult that he had one time, and the issue was the neighbor, the caller was upset that the neighbor was not pulling in their trash cans on time. And my law partner said, "Tell me about your neighbor. What's going on with them?" And they said, "Well, it's a young couple. They just had a baby. The husband's out of town a lot, and they're just not getting their trash can pulled in on time." And his advice to them was, you may have wasted your money, but my advice to you is to go over and say, "Hey, I know that you're new parents struggling and you've got a lot of things on your plate. Do you mind if I pull your trash can up for you?" You maybe try to talk to the neighbor. This is not a legal issue. This is an interpersonal issue. And he said thanks and sent them on their way. So sometimes consults can be like that, but more often than not, they are true legal issues.
Did he charge him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's payment up front. And they were like, "Well, we didn't use the whole hour." He said, "It's not for the hour. It's for your question." You should look at restrictions before you put an offer in. Like if you want a property that you want to be able to run your bakery business out of.
Yep.
You got to make sure that there's no restrictions against commercial use of the property. And so agents, this is so critical. So one, it helps make your search more efficient, and you're not wasting time at showings of properties that aren't going to fit their needs.
Yeah.
But then you don't end up with buyers under contract to buy a property and they lose their due diligence because they have to cancel.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how to find restrictions, that is a skill that you, I would say, need. It's not even it'd be nice to have. That's a must-have skill.
Yeah.
It's not a common occurrence, but it's not
know where you're
unheard
going.
of that somebody dies, a seller specifically.
Yeah.
We've talked about buyers can back out anytime. Sellers, it's not as easy as that. And so when a seller dies and they're in the process of selling their property, they are still in the process of selling their property.
Yep.
So just because they're dead doesn't mean, "Oh, well, I really wanted Grandpa's house." I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Grandpa was selling it.
Yeah, that can get tricky because, as you said, the heirs may have some expectations of, "I thought I was getting Grandpa's house." Well, if Grandpa had already signed the contract to sell it, you weren't getting it anyway. And the buyer can't be prejudiced by this. It's sad. We always feel very bad for the seller in this situation and their family or whoever their heirs are. It's not easy. It's not fun. But the buyer, they didn't do anything wrong. They shouldn't be prejudiced by this. So the agreement will be honored. The next one I have here, this was a reprimand. This particular agent represented a buyer in the purchase of a residential property that included a mobile home. The agent obtained and reviewed a copy of the septic permit during the due diligence period. Good. That's the part where we're good. But this is where it goes bad. Failed to notice or discuss with her buyer client that the septic permit specified 3 bedrooms while the subject property was listed as having 4 bedrooms. Uh-oh. Talk to me a little bit about, I think it's obvious how this could have been avoided, but what do you think about that? Because it's pretty big to get a reprimand for what some people might say is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and it is a big deal, right? Because your buyer's buying a home on the assumption that it's 4 bedroom when in fact it's only 3. So they're going to run into some trouble when they try to sell the property, and they can no longer sell it as a 4 bedroom. They're not going to get the amount of money for the home that they anticipated. So it is a big deal, and sometimes we see in the opinions where, in this case, it sounds like the agent just overlooked or was inadvertent, wasn't thorough, what have you. But then in other times we see total misrepresentation. They know, they're aware, and they continue to list the property with incorrect number of bedrooms for the septic system.
Like, you guys get busy, it's tough. You get the document and you look at it and you're like, great, got the septic permit, check that off the list. Very next item on your checklist should be compare the number of bedrooms to the listing. Go ahead and talk about number 3 as well.
So that's where you put anything that's personal property that you want to convey with the property. But this is also where if you really like that seller's table,
Yes.
you put your seller's table.
Yep. Mirrors are common too.
Yep.
Because sometimes mirrors are custom made to fit the space.
Yep.
So, like, all right, well, it's not going to fit in the seller's new house. They don't want it. And the buyer really wants it because they don't want to have to go get some special thing made
Yep.
for the space. So
The other one I really like is bar stools. You never realize how specific your bar height is until you put a stool there. And like, if that stool already looks good, I'll just take it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to want to redecorate your house
Yes.
anyway and your new house. So let me just have what you got here. It looks great. You did a great job. Like, butter the sellers up a little bit and say, you have such wonderful taste.